Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the AMANI Project. I'm Nicole Inica Hamilton, and I am sitting so happy today because today, my friends, today I'm going to be sitting down with Tanya Charles Iveniuk, and I'm so pleased to welcome her into our space. Welcome, Tanya. So glad. I'm happy. Can I just say I'm happy? I'm happy to be sitting down with you. Welcome to the Amani Project.
Thank you so much, and it's a pleasure to be here.
Well, I've got to tell you, it's been a pleasure listening to you. And I want to start off by saying to you, Tanya, violinist extraordinaire, that I thought to myself, you've probably heard the words you play so beautifully many times. So I thought I'm just going to start off by telling you that you dance so beautifully.
Oh, thank you.
You too. When I watch and listen to you play, it does feel like a beautiful dance. And so, yes, you dance beautifully, Tanya.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. I had this other skill I guess I didn't really know that I had.
Yes, you dance. You dance. And so I really have been looking forward to learning more. I want to dig in. I want to get into your life. Can you let me in your head just for a few minutes? Is that okay? Because
Yeah,
I
you can come inside. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on in there, but absolutely.
Mm. Yeah, let's talk about that. How have you been doing, first of all? I love asking that question because I've said so many times before, I feel like it sits differently now when we ask each other, how are we doing? Especially given where we are at and all that we're going through in this world. So, how is Tanya doing?
For sure. I feel like that answer is complicated. There are so many facets to not only just my personal life, but also my career and how it sits within the grand sphere of just what's going on in the world today. Um, but generally speaking, I would say, things are pretty good. I'm really busy with my work, which is always a really good thing is to be able to say as a musician. But there's also a little bit of, change happening in my sector as, the classical music sector that I'm sort of learning how to be and how to express myself in this new climate that's developing.
Can you? I'd love to explore that a little bit more. When you say you're learning how to be, what does that mean?
Uh, I feel like in the classical music field, there is almost a cookie cutter sense of what you're supposed to be or what you're supposed to look like. And in all so in sort of a general sense, because classical music is rooted in European traditions, it's typically there are a lot more white and male colleagues of mine, or just people in the past who have existed in this sphere. So where I find myself as a person who doesn't look at all like that has always been, I'll say, complicated. Um, Especially in today's climate where things are changing in terms of representation. Right now, my field is really feeling a lot of challenge to what it is that we do as classical musicians, what we do as the European tradition, and how does that move and morph with the changing times. So I've actually found myself in positions where I might have not necessarily been paid attention to as much, but all of a sudden I'm the in thing to a certain degree, and so people are actually interested in what I have to say about the field, about my experiences, about even some of the difficulties I've had colleagues approach me about. Facets of my life as a Black classical musician moving within the sphere, and how some of the problems that I've had, some of the things that I've encountered that for them just isn't on their radar at all because maybe they don't experience it the same way that I do.
Yes, I think one of the things that I hear very often, just in sitting in a lot of different circles among friends, even is just that responsibility that many of us have been feeling now to have to explore our pain, our struggle, and have to teach that to a lot of individuals and white folks who do come up and ask, what is your experience like? Have I ever offended you? What is it that I can do more to learn? And so there's a different type, there's an added weight of having to teach
Yeah,
that so many have been feeling. Have you been feeling that at
absolutely.
all?
Absolutely. Everybody is all of a sudden asking for my opinion on things. And whereas in the past, I might have felt comfortable not necessarily having a strong opinion. Now I sit back and I think maybe it's about time I figure that out, and then just go ahead and express it. So I'm also learning ways of expressing myself within uh, this context, where not only can I get my opinions or my thoughts heard, but it's in a way that is tangible to the people that are receiving it. And that sounds funny even to say it that way, because I should just be able to say what I want to say, how I want to say it. But I do feel that generally speaking, regardless of what environment you're in, you sort of end up tailoring your thoughts and expressions to suit whatever context you find yourself in. So it's been a challenge for me too, to just figure out how to relay what I want and receive what I want in turn without necessarily ruffling too many feathers along the way.
That resonates with me. The tailoring.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, that resonates with me. I'm going over that word in my mind as you've said it, because what I'm thinking about is that uh, are many of us in a position where we are expressing and showing and exploring with others, and in particular, white folks, how we've had to navigate through a lot of spaces, but also simultaneously protecting them, and preserving with this desire to preserve their feelings by tailoring how it is that we're sharing it. So I'm thinking, okay, is are we potentially doing that to, yes, protect their feelings, but also protect us from what could be the potential of discomfort in the space, or losing opportunity in the space, or looking angry in the space. Is any that, yeah, I see your nod.
Oh
I
man,
right.
there is so much of that, especially when you said the anger. I suppose I fit into that stereotype of the angry black woman just by sight, not necessarily, who I am as a person, but I can come off that way, not necessarily intentionally. So, yeah, really having to tailor yourself to make sure that you don't come off that way, even if you weren't intending that. It's a lot to think about constantly, and just, check yourself every second. Like it's exhausting. I think we do a lot, as musicians of color in this particular field, um, just to, I don't want to say get by, but just to be able to feel like we have a space to do what it is that we want to do, and to play how we want to play and express the way we want to express. It can be challenging, more so than perhaps our white counterparts may think.
Oh, it definitely is. I wholeheartedly agree. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a lot harder because there's layers and layers of things that we have to consider, and the challenge of that is often I want to be welcome in this space. So I'm really going to be guarded about how it is that I say this. So I want to make sure that there is a seat at the table for me. So I'm going to be
Mhm.
guarded in how I offer. And so I've been finding, Tanya, that I have really been enjoying just saying what is on my heart, just speaking my truth. And yes, I do feel all of the above at times, but there's been this opening, I feel, that we haven't seen in generations to explore what we are experiencing in a very in a more dynamic and more open. I'm just going to say a more open. I feel the doors are opening. They're cracked. Right, they're
Yeah.
cracked. They're
Agreed.
cracked a lot more than they were, um, but there's still so much work to do. You and I know this. There's still so much work to do.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And,
Yeah.
if we really want to be positive about it, I think it's going to be ongoing. And I just want to say, like, I feel like, or I hope, that it doesn't stop, because I feel like that's an opportunity for everybody to always have their minds open, not just now in this moment that is happening right now,
Yeah.
But, 10, 20, 30, how many ever decades you want to put on that, hopefully we're still thinking critically and openly and organically about these things. So
Yes. Yeah, the critical, the organic, the openness. I want it so much for my
I hear you.
children, my grandchildren.
I
Yes.
hear you.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I feel like we're only in, like, this is like an investment for anybody who's
Mm,
coming up behind us. Right.
mm.
So regardless of what I want to do with myself right now, I'm constantly thinking about my students, even if they're not my students, somebody else's student or somebody else's child. I got to do that work for them too. It does sound like a big task, but um, I guess because I feel passionately about it, I don't think of it as such. Like I feel like I'm somewhat honored to be able to do this work for anybody who's coming afterwards.
So let's talk about the young, those that are coming up. And in fact, can we take a step back and talk about you as a youngin? I want to learn
Yeah,
about Tanya as a youngin, and really get a help our audience to understand how you got started, where this all began for you. And so I think
sure.
one of the first questions I wanted to ask you was when you first picked up that violin, what it felt like in your fingers and, just resting on your arms. So I want to know it all, Tanya, but let's start with where did this begin? Your journey with music.
Yeah, for sure. I don't come from a musical background, what I mean is I don't have parents and grandparents who have done this before me. But I do have a lot of family friends who were really into the musical scene, um, who sort of just helped to foster some of that love. Actually, my older brother was the one who used to play piano in the house. He was taking lessons for ever, it seemed. I suppose he's so much older. But when I was 3, there was some piece that he played and it just spoke to my heart. And I said, Mom, Dad, I want to do that thing. I want to play piano. And I had to beg them to get me a teacher. And in I went into piano. And I studied that for a good 7 years. And then the violin kind of jumped onto the scene. It was super off my radar until a string orchestra came through my school, and they were advertising string education through the school in groups. And I saw them play, and I looked up at the violin. I'm like, that person is playing a lot of notes, a lot more notes than all those other bigger ones. It looks really hard. I want to do that. It was more the difficulty that really spoke to me. And so I said, Mom and Dad, I want to do that. And they're like, why? I'm like, I don't know. It just looks hard. Let's do that. And that's the beginning of it. And so, small town Hamilton, I picked the violin at age 10. And quite honestly, I really excelled at it far faster than piano, but I did them both right until the end of high school and decided, this is for me. I want this
Mm,
instrument.
love that. Who are some of your inspirations, your musical
Uh,
inspirations?
there are a few. I would say, I mean, first of all and foremost, my teachers. To be honest, like I keep in touch with all of my teachers who've helped me along in the past. So Ilona's Flight from my first days in Hamilton, she's the reason I play. She's the one who brought the string orchestra. So for her to be still a part of my life is massive. My piano teacher is a huge part of my life, Christabel Pinto, and Mark Fewer in my bachelor degree, and Mark Skazanetsky and my current teacher, Addis Bankus from the conservatory. And also, currently we still do lots of work together. They're huge inspirations for me because I see what they do, and I want a lot of the same things as well. But from an artistic standpoint, um, I've always had the problem of finding somebody who looked like me to look up to. It's been a struggle for sure. But luckily, through some of my work in the States, I've been exposed to a lot of my colleagues in the States who are Black who do what I do, and it changed my life. So, Kelly Hall Tompkins, I sat next to her as assistant concertmaster of Gateways, and she's beautiful. She's a beautiful person inside and out, a fantastic player. And, I just look up to her because I think she's amazing. And Ty Murray, who is also American, who I believe lives in Europe now, who is an amazing violinist. She's fierce, super fierce. If you haven't heard of Ty Murray, look her up. So those are my big two, like strong Black women doing what I do.
I think it's so important for us to say those names out loud,
Totally.
Yeah, those folks, those people, those wonderful humans that have done so much to impart into our lives and to plant seeds. Yeah, so I'm really enjoying hearing those names
Yeah.
and speaking them out loud. And so you mentioned the studying part. Talk to
Mm.
us about some of the places that you've studied.
Okay. So when I decided I was going to go into music, quite frankly, I had no idea what I was going into. But it's developed over the years. So I started with my bachelor's degree, Bachelor of Music and Performance, and I was at the University of Toronto for 4 years. And then I took a little break, feeling out, what is this scene about? And I actually did an apprenticeship. It's an orchestral apprenticeship that is run actually in my hometown, Hamilton, called the National Academy Orchestra. And it's basically exactly that. It teaches you how to be a strong orchestral musician, and it's a summer program. So I did that twice. And I still maintain a great relationship with them. I mentor there actually now. So I did that between my degrees, and then I went back eventually for my artist diploma in orchestral performance at the Gould School, which is it's a part of the Royal Conservatory of Music that does the post-secondary area of training.
And you've done some traveling.
I have a lot of traveling.
Just a
Yep.
little bit, right?
Just a little bit,
Just a little bit.
losing some sleep and changing some time zones every now and then. Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, across the country, I went with the National Youth Orchestra of Canada, back in the day, back in the early thousands or mid thousands, I guess. We traveled from BC, where we trained for 3 weeks, every day. It was grueling, and we traveled across as far east as Montreal and just all of the things in between the plains and we saw the mountains, we saw everything. It was great. I've been to the States, South Carolina, for the Color of Music Festival, and leading down there as well with the orchestra, and having my first American solo opportunity down there with them was super. And also with Gateways Orchestra, which is in Rochester. We're going to Carnegie this year. Like, I can't believe that. We're going to Carnegie Hall. This is so crazy. Yeah, and down to Mexico. I've done teaching in Spanish in Mexico for some schools down there. In Guadeloupe, I've been teaching in French, which is not my stronger language, but we made it work for the Ensemble du Monde in their festival down there, and in St. Vincent and the Grenadines as well. That's where my heritage is. That's where my parents are from, and I'm continuing to do some consultation work down there with one of the schools, the music schools. Yeah, and into South America, like it's been crazy. It's been super crazy. In England as well. I got to rehearse over there for a show that I ended up playing here. Um, yeah, just amazing experiences to travel the world and just see how other people do what I do here on regular basis.
Right. And I was waiting for you to bring up the languages because you do speak Spanish fluently.
I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
And talk to us about the rest because I know there is some French because you have done some teaching in French.
Yeah,
But yeah, let us know.
for sure.
Teaching in different languages, I wouldn't know. I wonder what comes with that when you are teaching a student about the violin, strings, notes. How do you approach it differently when you're teaching it in Spanish? Like, I'm just so curious to know what are some of the potential complications that come with that, or the opposite. What are some of the bright things that come with it? Because I've often heard friends of mine who do speak multiple language say that sometimes there may be a word in English, but there's not that same word in another language or vice versa. So I'm curious to know, give us the 411. What is
Okay.
it like teaching in other languages?
Um, so first of all, it's a learning curve. That is the major thing that happens. You learn fast. So my Spanish was academically focused first. Like, I did it alongside my degree, and then I did some interpretations and stuff. So like my Spanish was more about communicating with other people, not specific to music. So the first time when I found myself in a situation where I knew I was going to be teaching in Spanish, I was terrified. And then I got a dictionary and I started looking up all the musical terms that I thought that I would possibly need to only fall into the space and realize that there's so much more to be had about expression. And that's the side of thing. It's the side of the deal I wasn't thinking about. I was thinking more about like, okay, so what do I call the note? What's the word for note? What do I call staff? What's treble clef? How do I say the parts on the violin? And then somebody says, oh, what about expression? And I'm like, oh. So the learning curve is huge. And I think the more that you do it, the better you get at it. I would also say that when I switch into Spanish, I almost become a different personality. And that goes with when I'm just speaking and communicating with people. I feel like I have a slightly different personality in my Spanish. I would say it's a little bit more flashy and a little bit louder and a little bit more, I would say, slightly more expressive, to be honest. So that kind of falls into my teaching as well. I also speak French. My French is not as strong as my Spanish is. But when I teach in French, I actually have a different personality. Speaking about personality changes, it's a little bit on the quieter side. So I tend to lower my voice and speak like this when I'm teaching in French. And it's partially because of the insecurity of not being able to express myself as well. But I make it work. And I was lucky in Guadeloupe in teaching in French that I had a very patient student who was helping me a lot, especially in the initial stages. And then from there, it sort of falls. I also speak Dutch. I've only used it once. And ironically, it was in Mexico. There was a student who was a Dutch speaker. I didn't really teach him as much in Dutch. I was lucky that his mom was there to interpret from Dutch to Spanish to English if there was ever a place to like that where there was a hole in my knowledge. So that was super helpful. But yeah, so my languages are English first, Spanish high, like really close by, French a little less, and Dutch is kind of somewhere in there. I'd say more conversational than music teaching, but yeah, and just through being in this field, you end up getting exposed to things like German, so I can read it sort of, at least in musical terms, and Cyrillic, which is Russian. So I've seen some Russian. I really don't speak Russian at all, but it's fun to be able to just read other languages and also like communicate even in the slightest with anybody who I encounter.
Right. Well, as we were preparing for today, I was thinking about let me just put Tanya on the spot when I get there to speak in all of the languages that you just mentioned. I thought, no, let me not do that to Tanya. Not on a not today. Let me not do that to you. Maybe our next interview.
All right, sounds
So
good.
I'm just going to put Tanya on the spot. So you were talking about the teaching, and one of the things that I really enjoy discussing with teachers are approaches to teaching, because we know that students learn so differently. They receive information differently, and as teachers, the teachers rather often also have to think about how it is that we're curating the information that we're going to teach, and how are we going to make sure that we're doing it in a fashion that allows for students to receive and feel safe, to receive the information safely and feel safe in the space. And so I'm curious, do you have an approach to teaching that has been a part of your practice?
Definitely. I think a lot of it stems from my own personal experiences and things that I've gone through, and even holes that I feel now in retrospect that were in my learning. And I just want to feel like I want to be able to fill those, or basically create a space where that don't exist to the new student
Mhm.
or to a current student today. But I would say generally my approach is to cater to the student and their particular needs. Um, because I feel like the context of their life can change how they receive or are able to receive said information. So I really try to get to know my students, not only on a musical level as they develop, but on a personal level. So if there's something in terms of the repertoire that I can introduce to them that I feel will speak to their souls or speak to their cultures or that sort of thing, I actually do a lot of work just looking up what might be the key to sort of unlocking their personal development. So there's that approach, which is, the way that I sort of try to guide myself. Of course, there's my own personal experiences that will come through regardless. Like even if I tried to hold them back, in terms of repertoire choices, I think there are things that I think my students should know, especially if they might be interested in going into the field. So there is standard repertoire that I feel all of my students need to hit. And they can be supplemented with some of those former things I was talking about, with maybe cultural elements that I feel might speak to them or might resonate with them. Um, but generally, also just keeping an open door to dialogue with them, I think, is massive. I'm always, preaching to my universe, or saying to my university students, my door is open. Book my office hours. Book my office hours. Come talk to me. Like, I just want to know how you're doing, and if you have problems, let me know. So I keep that open channel, for students of all ages, not just the university ones, but even the tiniest ones, to so they feel that they're comfortable in the space and that they can tell me or express to me how it is they're feeling about whether it's their own lives or just maybe it's the repertoire that I'm choosing. Maybe they want something else, right? So
Right.
I think that's important.
I think that's so, of course, absolutely. I concur because it allows for that student to know that their care is what's being centered in the space.
Right.
I'm actually
But also
thinking
that they
about
learn to
you.
take ownership of what it is that they want to learn, right? It's
Right,
not necessarily that I need to dictate to you everything about your learning experience. I want to know how you feel about what I'm dishing out to you.
right. Yeah, it's the care, it's centering
Yeah.
that. Yeah, I think that's quite special. And I've seen the impact of that and the change that can happen when a student feels that, okay, my care, there's interest here. And
Hmm.
not just how I am doing academically, but there's actually interest in me as a human
Right.
and how I'm existing in this space.
Yeah. I think
Yeah,
that is something we can forget, is like we are all human. And we do have our own feelings, thoughts, opinions, what have you. And um, if we're able to acknowledge that and respect that, then, I feel like that's the basis of any sort of relationship, whether it's teacher student or colleagues or what have you.
right. Yeah, agreed. And in all the journeying that you have been doing teaching, I did really enjoy the reading through the article on theconversation.com.
Ah,
And
yeah.
yes, yeah, I really enjoyed that. And just having an opportunity to really understand a lot of the complexities that are involved in navigating through the spaces that you have been, and
Hmm.
also the complexities and many of the challenges as well that are faced for you and even students who are also trying to navigate through the spaces and that you do. So
Hmm.
share with us, please, the uh, what do we not know with regards to what it means to being a Black body in the spaces that you reside in? Spaces like sitting among or an orchestra, spaces like being in a production, in a theater production, sitting in a room of individuals, of musicians that don't always look like you. So I, I'm curious to know what some of the unique complexities are, because as a Black woman myself, I I know what many of the answers will be, but
Okay.
yours is sitting in the space of those orchestral spaces, for example. I'm curious to know what are some of those specific complexities that you faced, and also how is conversation being opened up in those spaces to ensure that individuals that look like you and I are made comfortable with learning how to play instruments, learning how to be an instrumentalist. So big questions, but
Yeah.
I want to come back to the first, those unique complexities with being a violinist who is also a Black woman.
Yeah, it's funny. You stopped on the word violinist, and I thought, yeah, that is pretty complex, even just by itself. As a Black violinist, that is. I get a lot of stereotyped sort of responses to, when people say, "Oh, what do you play?" "You're a musician. What do you play?" And they guess, and it's usually not the violin. So I just find it interesting, especially, when you talk to people who maybe haven't seen what it is that you do, and just kind of based on what you look like, assume that you're a pianist or a vocalist. Those are the top two. But when I say violinist, it's like, oh, that's different. So that's an interesting sort of, just dimension to just saying what I do and having the responses. I think on stage, what I pay attention to the most that people probably would not be aware of, my colleagues especially, because I don't really talk about it, um, is how I see the space, like the audience particularly. I'm always looking out on the audience. Like if you've ever been to an orchestral concert, we tend to come out on stage first, and we are playing and warming up and waiting for the concertmaster to come out and make his entrance and tune us. So in that moment where I'm warming up, I always look out into the audience and I'm looking for anybody who might be a colorful face, because it is so rare, and it makes me sad. So there's a sadness that kind of comes a little bit with being on stage sometimes when you don't see yourself reflected in the people who are watching you. However, I will say if there's that one face, I will play to them for that entire concert because I'm just so happy that they're there. So I think uh, as classical musicians or just the field in general, um, if there is or if there's anything that can be done to just make this space feel more welcoming to anybody, and not even just on the basis of race or outward appearance, but um, maybe it's a financial, like the economical status too, because it does have a bit of elitism, my field. So some people feel like they just don't belong there because maybe they're not as affluent. Um, yeah, so I think my there's a lot of work to be done on the part of my field and everybody in it to just make everything seem accessible.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's really important to just also just making sure that the field stays afloat, because the demographic, I'm going to be put it straight. It tends to be a little bit older in the audience, and they're only going to be around for so long. So if we don't
Mm,
make some sort of change now, then um, we might not have those people later. And then
yeah.
there's the racial component too, right? So
Right.
there's a lot of things that I feel like we need to just take care of and adjust and take care to do or to change.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
I recall being. I remember when I was a very young girl, and we were learning different instruments in school. I used to play the accordion. It was for
Oh
5 minutes,
wow.
though. I played for
Oh my
5
gosh.
minutes. For 5 minutes.
Awesome.
Yeah, yeah. Don't get excited. It was literally 5 minutes. Um, but I enjoyed it for the 5 minutes that I did pick it up. And
Mhm.
I remember having lessons at home, weekly lessons at home as a
Wow.
little one, and just really getting used to the movements of the accordion. Even just imagining it now, my little body trying to hold this very big instrument. And and one of the things that I also recall was being a little girl, and another friend of mine was playing the clarinet, but she didn't want to play because she said that she doesn't see Black people playing that instrument. And so
Mhm.
that still sits with me. So if
Mhm.
our Black children are not seeing themselves represented on stages, in orchestras, what does that mean for the future of young people who do want to play the violin, for example, but are not seeing themselves represented in certain spaces?
Yeah, wow, a lot of what you said, it really hits home for me. I feel like I was that kid who didn't see anybody out there doing what violinists do, across the spectrum of all things that one can find yourself doing as a violinist. And yeah, it was very hard to deal with or to fathom, and just to unpack on a daily. It's like, why do I even take this out of my case all the time if there's no seeming end goal? I think what I perhaps what if I can impart something to anybody, of any age, to be honest, and of any culture, um, about classical music in specific, because I know that it definitely has its own set of difficulties in this respect, is that if you love it, then you do it. If it makes your heart and your soul sing, then do it. It is for you as much as it is for anybody else who you see more often in this space. It's the thing that I sometimes have to remind myself of constantly, so I don't feel so my soul doesn't feel heavy. It's not an easy environment to be in. Nor is any, to be quite frank, I feel like there are a lot of environments that are very difficult for me as a Black female, and then you add the violinist. I feel like there are a lot of places where, the space can be difficult to be in part by the lack of representation, be it female or cultural, or just racial. But yeah, just to feel like, or just to remember the reason that you're there is because it makes your heart happy, and just really digging deep to just, right to the basics of why you do what you do, and trying to just, push aside, or at least work through, or even work through the things that you can, but push aside the things that you can't change, just to make sure that you stay afloat and you stay happy with what it is that you're doing inside. It's a constant battle. It's something that I am always dealing with, and always trying to just check in with myself. Are you okay?
Yeah, the checking in I really appreciate, and having individuals around me as well that can serve my wellness,
Yes.
who I can go
Super important.
to.
Super important.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I
I
think.
feel like, especially with the events in the past couple of years, with George Floyd, with just a lot of social uprising, and a lot of conflict, and like racial conflict. It's been I feel like all artists were searching for some sort of way to feel connected to one another. I know in the early stages of all of that crazy, I connected with a number of musicians of color, just saying, "Oh my gosh, my experiences have been X, Y, Z, and this is what it is right now to live and breathe and work in this field. And what are we going to do? And we need to find everybody else who does what we do." And so the good thing about all of that is that I have connected myself with other musicians who do what I do that I had no idea existed. Um, and so to feel like you're no longer by yourself in that sort of internal struggle, as well as all the external things that are causing some of the difficulties. It's just nice to feel like you can call on somebody who can relate to that experience.
And who are some of those people for you?
Yeah. So I actually created my own Facebook group of Black classical musicians in Ontario. There are a lot more than I thought there were. So it's been really great to just connect through them. And my uh, reason of having the group is not just for the connection, but also I want to know what they're doing. So, like, post, do you have a concert? Are you teaching? Are you, whatever it is that you're doing? I feel like we should all know what we're all doing, so that if there's some way that we can help one another, then we have a means of doing so, and we have the network of people who we can count on. My other big one, the one that just really I get so just thrilled about talking about it, is I am in fact, I am the concertmaster slash conductor. I kind of work as both, for a new ensemble in Canada called Ensemble Obiora, or Obiora Ensemble, which is based in Montreal. It is Canada's first orchestra of predominantly musicians of color. And in fact, I can say confidently we are predominantly Black, which is so cool to be in a space on my home turf, leading an orchestra and having people who are just, you know, so passionate about what we do, and just wanting the group to improve, and to be on the scene, like not just our own scene in our own little world, but like on the scene that we work in. We want those
Yes.
people to know that, hey, we're here. We've been doing this for years, and we're going to show you how we like to do it. It's empowering, and the repertoire choices are ours. we can choose what we want. So our choice is to promote musicians and composers who maybe haven't been in the classical music canon ever. So it's super powerful to like just be with that group of people. I get super excited just to know that I'm going back to Montreal to it's like you feel like you're going home. Um, and just the experiences that we've had with each other are super unique. Like I've done this sort of thing with orchestras in the States, and had great experiences, walking into the door in the first day of rehearsal. I remember the first time I went to the States and I was like, with my camera trying to take pictures, very surreptitiously because I thought maybe they're going to think I'm like the weird Canadian, and to have a whole crew of New Yorkers go, whoa, this is so cool. There's so many of us here and we all look the same. And I'm like, oh, this is who. So I had the experience there. It's different. It's more the African American experience, which I can't always relate to as a Canadian, as a Caribbean Canadian at that. So to do the work with Obiora and feel like we all have something in common, and it's just I don't have words for that.
I think you do. I loved every word that you just said. I
Okay, I don't have
do.
more words than that.
I do. I love it. And I think what I also love is knowing that there are young people who are coming up after you, and truly they're going to have a very different experience than you did.
That's my hope. That's my hope.
Right? Yeah, they're going to have a very different experience than those that came before them. And knowing that they're going to be, I'm going to use that word, empowered by
Mhm.
seeing a stage full of Black people playing
Oh,
music
yeah.
is
Even
it's
just
quite
being
incredible.
with Obiora, our first concert was just an experience that I feel like I will well, I mean, I want to say I will never have again. I hope to have that many times. But there's something really special about the very first time that an ensemble breaks out into the scene and everybody responds to that. And the responses that you're getting are the ones that, really resonate with you because they're almost like your lived experience. I spoke to a mom after the inaugural concert of Obiora back in August last year, and she says, my daughter was at the concert. She's 14 and she has taken a break on learning the violin. And I said, oh, okay. What did she think of the concert? She's like, when you walked out and you were commanding the stage. And I was like, oh, okay. I mean, I just wanted to know what you thought about how we played in the music and stuff. But you're talking about like the physical of us just being there on. And then she says, and you're like Black female and you're leading the orchestra. I'm like, I never also thought of myself as that either. I was just doing my job. But to know that you can have that impact just by showing up was super cool. And then she's like, my daughter is really excited now about picking up her violin. And I'm thinking, yes, that's what I want the response to be. I want you to feel that you can do these things. You can be empowered to succeed in the field, that this is now possible because you looked up on a stage and you saw a whole slew of people doing something you once thought was maybe not a possibility for you.
Yes, yeah. And I have to say that even just watching you play on many different stages virtually
Mhm.
has been quite beautiful. So
Thank you.
I concur. It's quite powerful. I think one of my favorites was watching you play Summer. There was something about Summer. It did something to me. It
Oh,
did. And that dance that I spoke about at the top of our interview today, it felt like quite a dance. I,
oh,
in watching you, I've realized I don't play the violin, but I've realized that uh, it's not just your fingers that are very involved in this process. Every part of you is involved in the process of playing, and so it was a dance. It definitely felt like a story that you were telling with every part of your body. And so, what are I'm curious to know what are the very visceral, what are the physical experiences, shifts, changes? What goes on through your body? I want to come to that now. In your body as you are stepping out on stage, and beginning to play. What is happening internally?
I would say it's a mixture of things. It's a mixture of oh my gosh, I have to do this thing. There is some stage fright, but I feel like over the years I've channeled it into excitement. My approach, and I learned this from one of my coaches at the National Youth Orchestra of Canada. She said, "Why are you nervous?" And I said, "I don't know, like, because everybody's watching me, whatever." And she said, "You know, it's a party and everybody's here to celebrate you. You should think about it from that perspective." And I'm like, "Oh." She's like, "Nobody's looking to, watch you make a mistake." And I was like, "You're right." So now I channel that sort of aspect of things, like go out there and enjoy yourself and play for everybody who's here to listen to you, as well as have fun with your colleagues. It's just so much fun to communicate with conductors and communicate with my colleagues as we play, because I want them to feel the same emotion that I'm feeling at any given moment. And that changes, it's dynamic, right? So if I don't have that communication with them, then I feel like I'm doing a disservice to the music. So, within my body, there's just so much going on. Like, here, I'm going to look at the first violins because we have this thing. Isn't it so great? Let's play it together. Oh, isn't that amazing? Oh, the cellos now. There's a lot of just communication things that I'm thinking about. Just constant dialogue with my colleagues. I think that's what makes it exciting for me. It's not about the fact that, in the case of Summer, the Vivaldi wrote this thing and I'm going to play it just so. It's fine if I play it just so, and it's not that you can't do that. That's just not the way I want to do it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And how do you warm up? I'd like to take a step back and ask that too, because once you're out on stage, I understand the stage. Ooh, do I understand the stage fright? I understand that. Yeah, it's very real. Real talk.
Yep.
It's very real.
And how?
Yeah. But there's a process that happens for us before we get out on stage and before we take in that moment where we are in front of so many and we know that a story is now about to be shared. And so how do you prepare physically, emotionally, spiritually? How do you prepare for stepping out and telling those stories?
I feel like it starts from the moment that I get up on the day that I have the performance. It's not even just about the backstage. I feel like I need to prepare my body mentally and physically for what it is that I'm about to do. So my day starts slow. I try not to rush anything, because that feeling of anxiety is exacerbated by rushing through things. I wake up slow. I make sure I have all the time in the world to sleep in if I need to. There's no alarm that's getting me up. I get up when I feel my body is ready to get up. And I just try to eat all the right things. So I stay away from the caffeine and the sugars on the day of a show, because you get jittery, so that's no good. And every moment where I feel like I want to touch my violin to play something in preparation for it is slow and meticulous. Again, just I don't want to feel like I've made a bunch of mistakes and that causes anxiety. So it's a very slow haul. Yeah, and honestly, when I'm really just like right backstage, I'm pumped. I'm not even thinking about the stage fright anymore. I am super pumped. I think a lot of my colleagues at the conservatory would probably remember whenever we had to do what we call mock auditions, which is kind of like walking into an audition situation where you could have stage fright. I used to have earphones or headphones on, and I'd be listening to like anything I wanted. If it's salsa merengue, if it's R&B, if it's hip hop, I am jamming in the hallway with my instrument, just hanging out and just trying to relax and just feel like I'm at peace with myself, and that whatever I give of myself when I get out on stage is authentic, is real, is good enough.
Oh, that sits with me. It does. It does. It sits with me because the stage fright, that's no joke. I get it. And one of the things that I've realized really allows me, Tanya, to move past the stage fright whenever I have felt it is to recognize and remember, be mindful of the fact that I am good enough. I do have something to offer in this space.
Yeah.
So I think that's quite special to remind ourselves that, and also not to wait for anybody else to tell us that.
So
right?
true.
There's something special in that, being able to
And I
say,
think
"Yeah,
and I
I'm
think
good
it
enough."
also I think also just like in my field particularly, um, classical musicians, we are built to be little perfectionists. Very
Mm,
good, very meticulous working perfectionists. And so when things don't go wrong, we tend to be really self-deprecating.
mm,
It is so hard to I don't want to say get over that because I don't think you ever really get over that completely. I think there's always a tiny bit of like just if you want to call it checking yourself. I feel like that's a little bit of that. I think you need to sort of learn how to move through it and work alongside it. Um, and yeah, it can be very difficult to teach that skill. And only through practice do you get better at just you know, allowing yourself to just be okay with whatever it is that you put out there. And I say to my students, and I try to remind myself of this: um, the second that you hit the stage, you have done the maximum amount of work that you could have done to this date, and now you just need to let it be. You can't go back and fix anything any longer. You have hopefully already done as much work as it is possible to prepare yourself for this moment, and now just live it. Just do it.
I appreciate that because I've realized during the course of my journey, there have been so many times where perfectionism has come up,
Yeah.
and trying to enter into a space with an ideal of perfectionism is something that has been at times very debilitating
Hmm.
because, quite frankly, and I finally came to the understanding many years ago that, wait a second, I never will be perfect, and that's okay.
So
Right?
true. That is so true.
That's
Yeah, it's like we're not
okay.
robots here.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
okay. I actually never will be perfect. So it's okay for us to show up. I really appreciate what you're sharing with your students. It's okay for us to
Mhm.
show up knowing that this, what it is that we have to offer, what it is that we have to give,
Yeah.
is unique. It's beautiful. It's actually, when I think about the word, it's perfect in and of itself,
Totally.
just
Yeah.
being imperfect.
Totally. And I think, it's really important also to show, at least, this is my approach, but I try to show my students that I mess up, that I have days where I don't feel good too. I'm not superhuman just because I put on the teacher hat and now, everything is perfect and hunky dory and whatnot. I have things that, trouble me. Um, and they need to know that I'm human too, right? Like I'm just like them. I might have gone through a different set of experiences and, over X amount of years more than they have, but that doesn't mean that I'm somehow better than or that I also can't have some of the same problems that they're currently experiencing.
Absolutely. Yeah. One of the things that I've been doing a lot more of, Tanya, and I'm so curious to know what yours is
Mhm.
asking myself, what do you need today, Nicole? Because it's not easy being a human out here, okay?
Yeah,
Let's just get real. It's not easy being a black human out here.
so
And
true.
so there are it's become very special to me over the years to say, what do you need today? Like what will bring you joy? What's going to make you smile? What can you offer yourself? And so in those moments when you have encountered challenge, Tanya,
Hmm.
how are you serving yourself? How are you serving your self-care?
I try to remember the things that make me happy
Mm,
as a basis. I have my family. I've got a beautiful daughter. I have people who love me and watch out for me outside of my family just the same. I have friends who are there to support me through whatever it is that I'm going through. So I feel like I just remember some of the good things. When I do have bad days, because I think we all do, as a musician and as a person, but specifically as a musician, when I do have bad days, it's hard. Like the perfectionism side of things really kicks in, and the self-deprecating. Yeah, it's very hard. Um, I have a book where I write the things that have gone really well, and sometimes I look back on that book and I reminisce about those things. And they help me to remember why I'm here, how I got here. And also, if somebody says something to me that resonates with me in the moment or that I feel can be uplifting in the future, it's in that book. And I read back and I go, oh, so-and-so said, you're really good at this thing, or, something at the moment, that might have just changed everything about my outlook on a particular situation. I try to remember all those things, and that kind of keeps me from falling as far as perhaps I would have had in none of those things.
Beautiful. Yeah, I haven't always been somebody who's journaled a lot, but I'm recognizing the importance. I really only started journaling again. I used to do it when I was much younger,
Sure.
and then my mother found my diary. But we'll leave that.
We've
We'll
all
leave
had that
that for the.
experience.
Yeah, we got lots to talk about in our next interview, Tanya. But I'll never forget that. It was actually quite funny. Love you, Mom. Found the diary. Found the diary. But I haven't journaled in many years and written in a diary in many years, and I've started doing it recently. And so seeing those things written down, and the opportunity that you're talking about to actually visually see affirmations, visually see words that have spoken to our heart, that have imparted such love, I think is quite special. So I appreciate the writing things down.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
It's turning electronic these days, but it just makes it easier to find. Search terms.
Search terms.
Yeah.
Again, another agenda item as well for our next interview. But I'm also wishing to know, before you leave us today, I'd like to do some rapid fire. Can I do some rapid fire?
Okay.
Questions
let's do
you. Yeah, I want to come at you. I want to come at you beautifully and lovingly. I want to come at you.
All right.
Because there's some things I'm curious to know. So let's do this. Let's do this. Are you ready? You're sitting down. You're comfortable.
I'm as ready as it's going to be. I don't know what I'm going to get. So rapid fire away.
Okay. Favorite collaborator?
Ooh. Oh, man. I mean, Stevie Wonder was pretty revolutionary for me. I mean, I'm not sure if that's total collaboration, but I mean, just playing on stage with him. If I would do a real collaboration, I would say there was a flamenco dancer that my quartet, the Odin Quartet, once worked with. It was just before the pandemic started. And her drive to just do everything she does as a flamenco dancer and as an artist and as a person, as a mom, as everything, was so inspiring to me. Her name's Carmen Romero. She's amazing as a dancer, amazing as a person. We were fortunate to work with her because I think with her, we actually created one of our best shows. So,
yes, yeah, we know Carmen Romero here at the AMANI Project. So yes, yeah. Favorite musician?
Hilary Hahn.
Oh, favorite color?
Favorite color, green.
Okay, favorite season?
Spring. Hard choice between spring and fall, but spring.
Favorite career triumph?
Ooh, Obiora, hands down. I love them, and I love leading them.
Favorite food?
Sushi.
Oh,
it's got to have eel. There has to be eel.
Oh, we're gonna come back to that next interview.
Okay.
Next interview.
All right, cool.
Favorite thing to wear?
Fuzzy slippers. To be honest, I have the worst circulation in my feet. I love my fuzzy slippers.
Favorite thing to do prior to getting on stage?
Laugh. I know that sounds really general, but laugh. I'm very much, I've always been a clown, just a person who likes a lot of humor. and I feel like I just need to like laugh and feel carefree before I hit the stage. And so if there's a colleague there, we're gonna crack a joke and we're gonna have a good time, and then out we go.
Something that you've never told anybody.
Oh, does my husband need to know? Something I've never told anybody. I I don't know. I don't. I have no idea. There are a lot of things I don't tell people. Ah, you're gonna have to come back to me on that one. That I mean, there are many things, but it's like which one is the most appropriate?
Okay, I'm adding on to this agenda for our next chat. I'm
All
adding
right,
on. Favorite device?
like a electronic device.
Yes.
My phone. Oh, hands
Mhm.
down. I carry like I go to the bathroom and my phone comes with me. Like I go
Oh,
everywhere and my phone is attached to my hip. I mean, it's also in part because that's where my work comes through. But also I like to just play games on my phone every now and then.
okay, I love it. Favorite person?
My daughter, she's so cute. I
Oh,
love her. I
oh,
really do. I just never really knew what it was like to have a child of your own or just to feel unconditional love for something and someone who can't always do everything for themselves.
I love that. Favorite affirmation?
Ooh. Never stop learning.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good and a beautiful place for us to close today. I have to tell you, Tanya, your joy. If no one's told you today, I'm just telling you. You
Thank you
are
so much.
your joy. It's such a pleasure to sit down with you, and as we close, I think it's always so important, vital, necessary for us to continue to keep speaking into the lives of those who are coming up after us. And so, your words of wisdom to artists, musicians, creatives, your last words of wisdom that you would leave.
I would say really get to understand whatever area or whatever field you're getting into. Know the people who are in it, the who's who, the people you wish to connect with or talk to, or the ones or the ones that you will seek out, maybe perhaps the most vital connections to maybe getting your next gig or becoming your next teacher or anything like that. Um, and in part with knowing your environment uh, comes with knowing the career choices. So just really just getting to know what it is you're about to get into. I mean, I happen to not know that going in and learned along the way. It's been a journey. It's been great. I will not change it for the world. But if you can know about it before you get into it, just do your homework and learn.
Mm, beautiful. Well, we're doing our homework and we're going to continue to keep watching you
Thank
and
you.
and listening. Tanya, thank you so much for all that you impart and share with community. We have so much love for you. Thank you for joining me today on the Amani Project. Such a pleasure.
Thanks so much for having me, Nicole.
A pleasure. Let's do it again. Let's do it again. And to all of you, thank you. Thank you so much for joining us on the Amani Project stage. I am just so delighted to be able to have these wonderful conversations. That, of course, was Tanya Charles Iveniuk, and it's such a pleasure to sit down with her today. So join us again. Stay with us. We have so much more coming up as we continue the conversations and sharing intergenerational wisdom. I'm Nicole Inica Hamilton. I'll see you again very soon.